Hello New Zealand, I'm Philip Duncan. Thank you very much for joining us. Well, the weather around New Zealand and the South Pacific is starting to quiet down a little bit, but we're not finished yet with the tropics. We have another tropical agitator forming up here to the northeast. It is remaining out at sea for the most part, and we don't expect it to turn into a major storm, but at this time of the year we are in the peak of the cyclone season, so it's worth keeping an eye on what is happening up there. This, by the way, the remnants of Oma, was downgraded on Saturday to an ex-cyclone, torn apart by this big high that is rolling into the New Zealand area with that cooler southerly change with it. Now, rainfall wise, we have seen a little bit of rain over the last week. Some areas have had a lot, others frustratingly have not. And so the areas that are circled are the areas that are some of the driest parts of New Zealand who did not get a lot of rain. In fact, some of you only got a few millimetres, and that is not good at all, like parts of Waikato. There were some other areas that got a bit of a top up, good for the pasture, good for the garden, but not really big as far as long term is concerned. So there'll be a lot of concern now about the fact we've got a very dry forecast coming in for those areas over the next several days, if not longer. So let's start off first of all with the temperatures. Much cooler Monday around New Zealand. This is the departure from normal. In other words, how much cooler than average is it at the warmest part of the day? And as you can see, a big chunk of the eastern South Island and at least half of the North Island well below average. That dark blue, 4 to 8 degrees below where you should be for this time of the year. And it's not just today. When we go through tonight, even more widespread, it will be a much cooler night tonight, especially as those winds start to fade, that high rolls in and locks in that colder southerly. So much of the country in for a colder night, perhaps the only area that's about normal around Bay of Plenty and Taupo. Then we get in towards Tuesday and it warms up. The westerlies come back to the South Island, so again, you're back to warmer than average with highs in the mid-20s. The southerly fading away here, which is why it's still a little cooler than average. Everyone else without a colour means that you are back to normal temperatures for this time of the year. So Tuesday looks like this. The remnants of Oma are up there. The new developing low off to our northeast. Both of them are not posing any kind of direct threat to New Zealand. High pressure is in charge of our weather. A southeasterly wind flow at the top. That's why it's still a little cool around Hawke's Bay on Tuesday and Gisborne as well. But in the south, look at that. The westerlies come back and they push your temperatures up above normal again. To Wednesday, and it's still windy around the South Island. In fact, even windier. And you've got another cold change coming. It arrives in the south later into the afternoon. Temperatures do drop below normal there because of this next high, which is further south. So the airflow going around it goes off the screen and comes back up. Elsewhere, I think most places on Wednesday will be fairly mild, and that low to the north actually getting a bit bigger now as it drops further south, but it's getting into that territory where they lose, even if it was a cyclone, they'd be losing their status in that area anyway. So, but worth keeping an eye on, very close to New Zealand anyway. To Thursday, now this is a cooler day around the country again. It's a little bit like Monday. We've got the high out to the west, we've got a cooler change in the south, and the further north you go, those winds turn around more southeast. That favours dry weather for Waikato, dry weather for Auckland, dry weather for Taranaki, but more showers back around Hawke's Bay and Gisborne with that southerly. That storm offshore might be bringing in some swells as well by Thursday. Then by Friday, the storm offshore being pushed away, being guided away, or being bulldozed away by this big high pressure system that is nudging it offshore. So the swells might be coming in for the surfers. We've got the southeast winds between the centre of that high and the centre of that low. So a little windy through that area, a couple of showers around. Otherwise it does look dry. And we end the week on Saturday where high pressure dominates the Tasman Sea. When the highs are out there, the rainmakers can't come in. So we get clipped by them in the south when they sort of sneak in as a southerly. We sometimes get clipped by the storms in the north around these outer edges. But for everybody inland in the middle, Waikato down towards Nelson, towards the upper part of the South Island, you are drier than average, and these highs will continue that pattern for at least another couple of weeks. So we are now starting to focus on that quite intensely. Other forecasters over the past few days, they've been very hyped about flooding and heavy rain. We were not. And that's because we are seeing a long-range trend of drier than average weather around New Zealand for the first half of March. Fingers crossed we get another rainmaker somewhere in the middle of March and it all reverses it. But I got to say, the next week or two ahead looks pretty dry in a number of areas. That is all from me. Good to be back this week. We'll see you again on Tuesday.